Oh, wow. I didn't know you were there. Welcome, mystery viewer. You may be wondering, Aubrey, your hair looks a little more bouncy. You may not be wondering this. And this is because, if you are wondering, because I'm sure you are. Anyway, I got a diffuser. I've been needing one for a while, and it's really nice to feel like my hair has more shape. I do desperately need a haircut though. So I'm excited. I'm excited about that though. That's progress. You know, it certainly helps to have more confidence when you feel like your hair is in order. You know what I mean? Hello, Fumalina. Welcome. Good to see you. Please go follow and subscribe to Fumalina. Their stream is incredible. We did a raid the other day, and you really have such amazing vibes. Thank you for providing an inclusive space that is so chill and healing. I greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure there are so many other people that do as well. Hello, Linton. Welcome. How are things with you? How are things with you, Fumalina? How has the stream been? Okay. Shall we get into the intro? It's another day, another stream in fascist America, the United States of America. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. I'm Aubrey Devashri. Welcome, namaste, to the people who are here with good intentions, who want to build a better world, build up people, see the humanity in each other, which also doesn't mean we are doormats, that we don't call out bad behavior. And we also welcome robust discussion, good faith criticism. But if you are here to demean other people, diminish people's humanity, exacerbate these hierarchies of human dignity, a curse be upon you. Using my Hydra power, non-binary, indigenous identity, because we need to be, I think, cursing fascists more. So that's where that comes from. I did not originally start off doing that intro cursing people, but with like certain events that have happened, I was like, I think we need to scare fascists more. And guess what? I think it does, to be honest. And that does not mean I cannot take good faith criticism. So throwing that out there as well. You got a discount and some on the re-up. Ooh! And that is amazing. The re-upping of the sub. I said that like such a boomer. And thank you if you are meaning about this subscription. Glad to hear that you're doing well as well. Okay, so today I wanted to continue with some headlines, especially local news in Utah, where I am located, about public lands that the Trump administration, they are trying to sell. It is a huge chunk of land. Of course, it is sacred indigenous land as well that they are trying to sell. So we are needing to raise the alarm, spread information on this. Oh, re-up on the green. Oh my god. That makes more sense. Yay! I'm glad you got that. That is amazing. So needed, especially these days. That makes a lot more sense as well, because you did resubscribe also with a discount, but that already like happened a few days ago, so I wasn't sure if you were referring to that. But you did mention yesterday that you're needing to restock. I'm so glad that you got that. That is very needed. Especially with discounts, that is amazing. Things are far too expensive everywhere, really. Um, so I wanted to talk about those public lands today. Also some events that have happened in Utah locally that we need to be discussing. Especially when it comes to these hate crimes that are increasing, especially to people of color. I mean, whether it is state sanctioned or no, because that's what ICE is doing. That's what the police have been doing. I mean, what ICE has been doing too, just they're much more overtly fascist these days. Um, I also wanted to, there's so many things that I'm like, I would love to get to this, but we will have that happen for the rest of the week, or plan it out, space it out for the rest of the week. And I also wanted to talk about some things that are happening in India, especially with protests, that people are not really talking about in the mainstream media. So that is important, especially with a lot of this capitalist extraction, and any sort of resistance that is against this is met with horrendous violence. So I want to highlight that. Also, there is this episode. Is it an episode or just a discussion from the channel Revolutionary Communists of America? They have an episode. Why do I keep saying that? A video. I should look into seeing if this is a podcast or not, or if it's just them talking. I guess anything can really be considered a podcast these days. You got your commie itinerary? Yes, for when you're traveling. Amazing. I love to hear that. You were talking about getting some Gramsci. Who else? Who else were you wanting to get more of their books? But in this title of this video, whether it's a podcast or no, it's called "What Would a Communist Do If Elected to Office?" So I am very interested in what they have to say, because, it also needs to be said that there is a lot of diversity of thought within the left, within communism, and especially when it comes to diversity of action and tactics. So, what kind of communist is something that we need to be asking. And I also wanted to get some suggestions for the next book we're going to read for Literature Storytime, because I still need to go to the bookstore and get that one book, the Worker Bees book that you mentioned, Linton. I do want to read that. So that will be next on the reading list. But until I can get there, which maybe is just in like the next couple of days, I did want to start reading something that I already have. So we'll go over that as well. Anyway, I like some of the agitprop the RCA, RCI, RCP produce, but goddamn, their membership is where all my Trotskyist stories. Yeah, that is what I can gather as well. And so, like, hence the disclaimer of what kind of communists are we putting into power, like in this hypothetical situation? Because, there is a lot of diversity of thought, like I mentioned, and there are many movements that can and are co-opted. So I'm very curious as to what they have to say on this matter. I hope it's like showing some of the diversity of thought, but yeah, we'll see what they have to say. They do have some good orators when they're not tearing down every revolution. Oh God. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with their content, at least. like I've heard stories about, more of the membership. And so I am curious as to like what the content is all about. So we may be watching the whole thing, maybe not. We'll see what happens. Okay, shall we get into our humorous video for today? This is episode 9 of A Very Fatal Murder, season 2, the satirical podcast by The Onion. And it is an episode that says live at the Clara Shortage Foles Criminal Justice Center. Oh, God. So, normally this is something that would be like, wow, if a podcast, I mean, it's all fake, but like normally it would be cool if like a podcast, they were doing a show like in any sort of jail, prison, a center that people are being held, because we need to, like, as we were talking about yesterday, we need to focus on abolition. And I don't think it's going to be that. Because this is a satirical podcast, so we'll see what that has in store for us. Fiona Iali is a decent spokesperson over here. She's RCP, but I've seen them show some solidarity, which is more than I can say for the rest of them. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. And, like, we need to call out the lip service, especially how you're saying, like, good orators. Like, sometimes that can be even more frustrating in like trying to work with people or reason with people who feel like they have like a lexicon that they're working with and like using the right buzzwords for things, but then like having to piece apart what they are saying to get to the heart of what people mean. It can just be like just working through all of the layers. That can be a more exhausting exercise, which it's like, I mean, it's not working with fascists, but also it is still like, okay, what are we talking about here? Are we for the liberation of all people, or is it just about wanting to tear people down? Okay. Shall we get into the video?
From the Clara Shortridge Foltz Criminal...
Oh, I need to have the sound on my end. Whoops.
Justice Center in Los Angeles. My name is Bill Curtis, and this is A Very Fatal Murder. Live! And without further ado, the only podcaster wanted for the crime of assaulting the nation with hard-hitting podcast journalism, David Pascal.
Wow. Wow.
Resistance
Thank you.
Museum.
Thank you, Los Angeles. Thank
Ooh.
you so much. You are beautiful.
When I went to Amsterdam, I did not go to that. We were only there for like a day. Also found a gallery with Soviet and Cuban art. Revolutionary art. That's amazing. You'll have to take pictures, and then hopefully by the time you're back, I have the Discord shit figured out and that you can share them there.
And we are live. We have a wonderful show for you.
That
Today
sounds
you will
incredible.
get a super exclusive look inside the case of Milo Reed. Oh, all right. Yeah. And a special never before heard live reading of the verdict. But before we get into any of that fun stuff, Bill, let's bring out our first guest.
She's served on the bench for over 20 years, but has never seen a case quite like this. Her new tell-all memoir, Benchmark, My Time on the Milo Reed Case, is available in bookstores now. All rise for the Honorable Judge Yana Nazarian.
Order! Order!
Hey, pipe down, or the only thing you'll be ordering is a new gavel.
Judge Nazarian, thank you so much for being here. Always happy to see you. Did I mention I caught you on Anderson Cooper last night?
Okay. They were caught you on Anderson Cooper. This is happening in the court. That's what's happening.
Oh, good.
Please just call your next guest, Mr. Pascal.
All right, you heard her, Bill. Who's up next?
All right, don't hold me.
The fact that like a court would even be entertaining this. That is
She's the
satirical.
president of the Santa Clara Grieving Mothers Club and is 100% certain Milo Reed killed her daughter. Please welcome Stephanie Choi, everyone.
Hello.
Wow, Stephanie, thank you. Thank you for being with us today. I gotta ask, even after everything you've heard in the past couple of days, do you still think Milo did it?
Of course. I know in my heart of hearts that Milo did it. He's always been evil.
Enough with the waterworks. I've got a 3 p.m. tea time at Hillcrest.
All right.
Oh my
Who else we got,
God.
Bill?
From Chicago, Illinois.
pretending
he's
like
the
it's a
host of
game
Wait,
show.
Wait, Don't Tell Me, and the king of live podcasts, Peter Sagal.
Hello, Los Angeles. Great to be here.
Peter! Well, look, oh man, everybody
Just saying,
loves you.
enough
Peter.
of the
All right.
waterworks when
See-
it's like the Liana Choi who was murdered in this fake story that her mom was called up and they're like, oh, sorry, you're crying too much. That seems real. Also, Vondel Bunker. It's a repurposed Cold War bunker that anti-fascists kind of use as a hub and run events and stuff. Ah, that's cool. I haven't heard of that. That'll be amazing. Again, if you're interested, willing, pictures are welcome.
Thank you so much for doing this. I am a huge fan.
Hey, likewise, David. Really happy to be here.
And
That'll
finally,
be
a
very
man
cool.
who needs no introduction. You may know him best as the CEO of Terrain. You may know him from the murder trial of the century. You may even know him as the only billionaire to outlive every single one of his wives. Ladies and gentlemen, your defendant, Milo Reed.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Thanks,
He
Bill.
outlives all of his
Hello,
wives.
everyone. Thank you for coming to see if I'll be convicted of murder today.
Could that be a
And
coincidence?
spoiler alert, I didn't do it.
He'll be taking
Oh,
that.
come
Lots
on,
of
come on.
pics.
Hey now, innocent till proven guilty, right? Folks, we've
I hope
reached the
you
point
have
in the
the
trial
best
where it's time to
time.
play a little game we like to call closing arguments.
You get to eat some
That's
good
right,
food,
David.
see some
Throughout
cool
the
things.
trial, the jury has been told
Get
two
some
tales, one true and one
great
tall.
products.
This is their chance to hear every
Be able to
side
relax
story
a bit.
before they finally decide
Have fun.
who is telling the truth and who's trying to pull one over on them. Deputy.
This was last time. Ooh. Oh, yeah. The station, the train station. Beautiful. Look at that architecture. Hello, Boonso. Welcome. Blink. How are things with you? Yeah, that's stunning. I'm so excited for you. 4 of the 5 new books came in. Amazing. I love how much people love books over here. It makes me so happy. Every time I've been, there's been demonstrations going on. I know. I mean, I've only been there once, but like there were multiple that I've seen, like pro-Palestine demonstrations in the morning and like later in the evening. And that's really cool to see. Also, the street art there, that's something that I mean, I've said this before. I like to look at street art wherever I go because that's how you can tell what the people are saying, you know? And there is a lot of pro-Palestine street art, especially like ACAB street art as well. That was really cool to see. And this is what like the majority of people, I think, well, maybe not the majority, but a good portion of the world understands what is happening in Palestine, and including Sudan and the Congo. We need to have more awareness there. But yeah, we have an ad happening in 5, 4, 3, 2. If you're subscribed, you don't have to deal with this. Exactly, ACAB. Yes. Speaking of, see, you knew what I was about to say. You knew exactly what I was about to say. Incredible. Yeah, love to see it. I was with my family in Amsterdam, and they were like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "All cops are bastards." And they were like, "Okay." There's a reason why we do not really see eye to eye on really much, not a whole lot of contact there. But seeing stuff like that, it's like, wow, there really are more of us that think similarly. I'm doing all right, sent out some applications today. Yesterday, I actually, when I was out and about, because I do this when I go places, I'm like, are you hiring? Please, will you hire me? Or can I apply? And a lot of the time with how the economy is, also depending on how I'm presenting, which I was more femme presenting yesterday, so I probably had a better reception than what I normally do. So that was my mistake, even though I did not plan it that way. But necessarily that people were like, oh yeah, we're hiring. And so I'm like, okay. So that was great to hear. So I applied for some things today. Looking for a job. Exactly. Yep, I am. But your crew was a cop. Thank you, Boonso. I am looking for a job. It's like I would love to be able to get to a point where I could be streaming full time and have that be a primary source of income, but obviously that can take a while to get there. And need to pay the bills in the meantime. So this is the strategy, I guess. Just taking what comes, seeing what I can get. But especially in the US, the NBs, the theybies, the gender expansive folks, it is getting increasingly difficult to find employment. So thank you for the well wishes.
District Attorney Watts, you're up first.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today I speak to you not only as an attorney, but as Rosa Watts, a mother. I speak as a parent, a wife, and a fellow member of this community. Milo Reed is the worst of our society. He is a blood-hungry murderer protected by billions of dollars.
Objection. Milo's home's protected by billions of lasers, Your Honor.
Sustained.
If you look at the evidence,
Nice.
The truth is clear.
Good one.
We matched the saliva found on the body to Mr. Reed's DNA. We have security footage of him dragging her body through the streets of his servants' quarters. And the strangulation drone used to kill Miss Choi, programmed by none other than Milo Reed himself. The writing is on the wall. He is the killer, and he must pay for what he has done. We ask you, members of the jury, to return a verdict of guilty so justice may be restored to this family and to the great city of Los Angeles.
Honestly, the most satirical ending for this podcast is that a billionaire would have any sort of justice dealt to them. That they would face any sort of consequences.
Thank you.
Just like the AI in the last one.
From Ms. Watts.
That
Almost
AI
had me
actually
convinced. Now,
had some
how
restraints.
about we take a quick break from all these morbid details for a quick round of Did He Do It?
All right. This is a new game here on A Very Fatal Murder, just for the live episode. Peter, why don't you take this one?
Okay, members of the jury, on the count of 3, I want to hear you make some noise. Clap, whoop, whatever you want to do if you think Milo murdered his wife. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Getting an audience reaction. This is probably going into like
Okay,
the court
now
record.
make some noise if you think he is just a misunderstood genius. Let's hear it. Looks like you got your work cut out for you there, David. I would keep an eye on juror number 9 if I were you. Hey,
okay.
but seriously, these guys.
So the
have been
host,
doing
the
such a great
podcast
job.
host,
Can
was
we
the
get a
only
round of
one
applause for
clapping,
our jury?
thinking he was
Can we
innocent.
do that?
Defense, you may proceed with your closing arguments.
All right, it's my turn. But wait, before I start my closing arguments, you guys want to hear some narration? Come on, Clara Shortridge, Fulton Criminal Justice Center. Do you want to hear some narration? Guys, panel, what do you think? You want to hear some of Very Fatal Murder live narration?
I just want this to be over.
All right. I mean, you asked for it. On the podcast, we edit this stuff together. So here, since it's live, I might mess things up. So, hey, don't shoot me, bailiff. Let's get some narration music, guys. Thanks.
This whole situation
Los
is
Angeles.
completely
It's a
absurd.
city of first impressions.
But honestly, like, there have been such circuses of cases, like litigation, that have happened particularly in the US, in US history before, so it's not even like that out of the realm of possibility is the wildest part.
First impressions are everything here. You walk into a General at Netflix with a Thousand Island dressing stain on your button down, and that's how they'll remember you forever, no matter how many clever self-deprecating jokes you constantly make about it. Young, hungry actors can get discovered anywhere, in a coffee shop, on the street, in line for the mummy ride at Universal Hollywood, maybe even in a courtroom. First impressions are crucial. But as I stood there in front of the entire court, the jury, the press, the enthusiastic live crowd. That's you guys. Yep, that is you guys. Thank you. I couldn't help but think that this is also a city of last impressions. The final scene of a script, the final shot of a movie, the last impressions a killer makes on their victim, the last impressions a victim gets of the world around them. There's a reason detectives like to ask when was the last time you saw her, and not when was the first time you saw her. But the most important last impression of all, that's the last impression.
Just once again, the writing for this is good, of like, it takes good writers to understand like a setup and a conclusion that would come to like a profound insight, and instead like to understand what makes bad writing and something that falls flat is like you actually have to have that knowledge beforehand of them writing up this setup and then it not like go anywhere or landing, and it is just like a very dumb thing to say. Like, there's a reason why detectives don't ask, when was the first time you saw her? It's like, yeah, because that's not pertinent to the case.
A hotshot lawyer makes on a kind-hearted, open-minded jury. I couldn't believe we'd reached the end of the trial already. I've been representing Milo in court for over 2 months now, but it feels like yesterday I was just another reporter, a podcaster who, like the rest of the media, was convinced of Milo's guilt. But so much has changed. I've changed.
You have to know
I
what
hope
it's supposed to
you've
be if you
changed.
want to make fun of it.
And right
yes,
now,
exactly.
looking out at all
Hello,
the faces in
Turbomb.
the crowd,
Welcome.
some strangers,
How are you doing?
some familiar. Hey, Skiff. All right, calm down. I couldn't help but feel a bit nervous. This was my big moment. So much was at stake. If justice was an earthquake, then I was at its epicenter. But was it going to
It's
be
like the chaos of the live show in the courtroom.
a benevolent earthquake? One that swallows up the bad guys and leaves the good ones? Or a malevolent earthquake? An earthquake that puts innocent men in jail? That was up to the jury. And it all depended on my closing arguments.
This is it, folks. The moment you've all been waiting for. David Pascal's closing statements. The
Loving how
pressure
chilly it is
on.
outside. Glad to hear you're
Okay,
doing
here we go.
well. Is it chilly?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good
good.
afternoon.
Yeah.
I'd like to begin by taking a walk. Will you
We'll
walk
take
with me?
these
Great.
moments where we
Let's
can get 'em.
stroll, if we may, through the case at hand. Over the course of this
Glad to
trial,
hear
you've
you're
heard a lot about my
experiencing
client,
that and
Milo
taking
Reed.
advantage.
You've heard that he allegedly strangled
Oh.
his wife to death with a drone. You've heard about all
It's
their
like, I don't know
so-called
what's
marital
going on.
problems and the so-called eyewitnesses and the so-called evidence.
Sarcasm. It's like, is there a cold front happening somewhere? Is it windy? Yeah, if only it was chilly. I was like, I don't know what's happening in Idaho. But yeah, I'm sorry that things are miserable outside. They are in Utah as well. I mean, really all across Utah. Dry sarcasm? No. I also am just like, I'm not going to pretend to know what the weather is. Like, I know what it's like here. It's bad. Yeah, please try to stay cool. Hydrate. Same goes for politics. The ones who understand capitalism most are communists. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Capitalists are like so willfully ignorant about the inner workings of capitalism, and they also just like don't care. Like, as long as they get to benefit from it, then they don't care. But yeah, sadly, the people who understand the most about capitalism are the ones who are affected the most by capitalism most of the time. I haven't been out in it all day, so it's not bad. Okay. Yeah, try to regulate if you can. Stay cool. It's brutal. It's brutal. At least where I'm at. I'm guessing from what you're saying. Decoding the sarcasm. We were watching more of I'm a Virgo yesterday evening. Also with like you, Linton, you even like called out with the video you shared of Joan's speech, how you're like, oh, it helps to get around spoilers, and I'm like, what? And I just played the whole thing. So I apologize to the people who are wanting to watch the show that there were some things revealed. That's my bad. That's bad form. But we did get to episode 4, episode 5. Just the genius continues. I do really like how they show Jones being, like having queer people, especially people of color, but particularly Black queer people who are at the forefront of fighting for rights and for liberation. Like how Jones has that neck tattoo that says liberation. I love. Also the intro to each of the episodes, that it's different in showing I'm a Virgo, but just like in different texts. Like, Boots Riley is a consummate artist. And the music that is chosen for the show, just top tier. It's a little cooler here at like 97. Okay. I mean, that's still hot. I thought it was a little hotter in Utah. What is it at right now? I do know that it's pretty hot. Like 98 from what I'm seeing. Depending on where you're at though. Tried to find a clip of just the speech. No, I appreciate you sharing, but yeah, I take responsibility for that. Sorry, folks. That was bad form. But the speech is great. And even like if you watch it in context, like it just helps to like add the emotions that are layered onto that moment. Bountiful says 96. Yeah, it's brutal, and we still haven't gotten to August yet. It just is wild that there are some people, especially like in our parents' generation, that are like still not believing in climate change or global warming, where like we were talking about this the other day, my partner and I, of how now the argument with them is not just like it doesn't exist, which is what it used to be, but that now it's like a reframing of like, oh, well, the world's climate changes all the time. It's like, okay, but not like this. Not like this. Like, you have seen in our lifetime how all of the snow we used to get has drastically reduced. That we only get like a few snowfalls a year, and it doesn't stick to the ground. Like, it's weird looking at like old like family video or clips or pictures and being like, wow, we really did have snow. Utah was actually like known for having snow. Imagine that. I'm looking forward to the dialectics lesson in I Love Boosters. It's really good. It's really good. Bringing my friend when it drops in October. Love a good tool in my radicalization project. Yes! For friends that you're like, they seem like they might be open to this. Yeah. I Love Boosters is really good. Once again, the soundtrack for that is like just so well chosen and like so creative. The representations of these like larger societal existential issues that, you know, we're lucky. It's like we know that like Boots Riley is a complex person and not perfect, and, you know, like having to make compromises under capitalism to make art as well. But also, like, we are all doing this. How do we get to a point where we aren't? That is hopefully what we are working towards. And also a big part of that is educating people, which I think his art has done a lot of. Like, it's amazing that he's been able to create these things to begin with, which is wild. We'll take what we can get, you know? Remember every winter had a shit ton of snow? Yeah, remember when, like, learning to drive, it used to be like, you have to learn how to drive in the snow. Otherwise, you are a hazard to everyone around you. And that was a very scary thing of, like, driving and being like, okay, this is just normal. You have to learn how to drive in, like, a foot or more of snow and figure things out. And it's like, that has not been a thing for a long time. Anyway.
You've heard about Michael Fernari, the state's key witness. The only person who, as he claims, witnessed Milo fleeing the crime scene. But you've also heard from me, a rising star in the legal world, poking holes in every one of the state's theories. Because, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that is all they are. Theories. The DNA evidence, it's unreliable. It may have been planted. The experts,
we're driving down the mountain
they're
after
wrong about
state
everything.
dances.
They should find new careers.
I know.
The surveillance video?
I know, especially in Bountiful.
Oh, and what about Michael
where it's like everything is a hill. And so, like, having to figure that shit out is crazy. I got these clementines, and they're so good. I feel like clementines are very hit or miss, especially like when they're imported from places, obviously. Like, if they're not grown in your area. But with all of this, like, produce now being like, oh, there could be, like, fecal matter and parasites that you're ingesting that's making people sick. That's like, so what do we do? So what do we do with the food that we're getting then? I mean, the answer is that, like, we need to just be growing our own food. But also that's, like, an investment, and, you know, that can be difficult to do. That's what I am working towards, growing some foods that we're not reliant, especially on, like, corporate groceries. But yeah, then it's like, well, I'm glad we're being poisoned in every way possible. That's great. Tell you the time he shredded his leg longboarding? Yes. And there are pictures as well where, like, his leg looks like beef jerky. It's really it's really alarming. Were you there at that time?
What did we learn about him?
So gross. I know.
I'd like to remind the audience to please refrain from any call and response during closing arguments.
We were talking, I mean, we do talk about this, like, every so often of, like, remember when we were younger and, like, we did shit and people would be like, you're gonna feel that when you're older, and being like, no, we won't. And now that we're like in our 30s, we're like, oh, this is what people were talking about. That's really, now we're dealing with the consequences. Okay, so we will have an ad be running in about 20 seconds. Also, I guess we'll ask the audience, viewers, chatters, what do you feel like is your preferred method for ads? Of like having shorter ad breaks, but in like a shorter span of time, or longer ad breaks and having a longer time in between? I would like to do what is most tolerable to everyone. Longboarding is so fun. I need to find mine if it still exists somewhere. Yeah, I would just like kind of like pedal occasionally. Like there was like when we were living in Spanish Fork, a town in a city in Utah, that like occasionally we would like go get like shakes or something, like ice cream, and I would like pedal on a longboard. That's as far as I'll go. And now that I'm older, I'm like, there's no way I I will survive crashing. But yeah, especially like what my partner would do, and like what like many young people would be doing like in the friend group, is doing like downhill longboarding, where you have to have like pucks on your hands and you have to like slide out to stop. And it would stress me out. It would really stress me out watching people do that. And I would be like, isn't this dangerous? We're so crazy. I know. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna just like bomb this hill. And they're going like 50 miles an hour. Then there are like cars driving past. And like, of course, the cars are like upset. They're like, excuse me, I can't see you that well. Probably bust my ass. I haven't been on any kind of skateboard in nearly a decade. Yeah, it can be brutal, but luckily with like longboards, it's a little more forgiving. I think easier to like cruise around on. Rode with Johnny in the geostorm following them one time. Yeah, that is what I would do when I would like tag along, is like drive behind people or drive people up a hill and then they would go down, and it was very stressful to watch. And so I would just like watch some of their edits a lot of the time. I'm like, this is very stressful to witness. And I know people are having fun. They don't need someone around that's like, don't do this. But I'm like, maybe there was some sense in that.
Your Honor, the point is, Michael Ferneri may or may not have been an incest freak. Can you trust the testimony of someone like that? I don't think so. You can choose whether or not.
So that feels like it's coming out of nowhere, and it kind of is in this podcast episode. Because Michael Ferneri, he is a witness, and they're trying to smear him in any and every way possible to make it so that he's not credible. And they're saying that he's an incest freak just because he like has a good relationship with his family. Got your forehead scar on a scooter. Who knew cars frequent roads? Things we do when we're young. That's like, wow, why did I do that? Why did I think I was safe? Like, in so many different circumstances, we can say that. Like, ignorance really is bliss. Maybe this is why it's easier to, like, not be educated about things. It's harder to exist in the world when you're like, wow, there's a lot of danger and people are really shitty sometimes. I was too scared to do any of that shit. I mean, same. And, you know, that's probably for the best. like I already am dealing with like I need to like take care of my back more and shit. It's like just sitting, destroying our backs, like that Western invention of like, yeah, we need to be like squatting more. So I'm doing that in my free time, like doing more yoga and such, decolonizing that aspect. But yeah, my defense, someone who was nowhere near the road said it was clear. Someone who was nowhere near the road. They're like, I think so. Feel deep squats. It feels so good. Yeah. Like, if you can do it, full deep squats, yeah. Yeah, and I'm like, it's really good for our backs. It's good as like a resting position, but yeah, even just like taking the time for self-care, that is part of the issue, you know?
Believe it. But if you do believe it, many people will think that you support incest.
David Pascal is heating up.
You've also heard some pretty damning things about Milo from other character witnesses. Sure, the state's AI justice algorithm sat right up here on the stand and told us that she was sure beyond a shadow of a doubt that Milo did it. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, have you ever had a computer that worked all the time? Juror number 4 knows what I'm talking about. Computers are crazy, man. Genius Bar is like my second
Just
apartment.
making
Yeah, so
bad,
true.
poor
Plus,
taste
what you
jokes.
didn't hear is that very same justice algorithm was originally programmed by me, which means it's likely bringing to the table the very same biases I carry around in my everyday life, the biases we all carry around. And yes, sure, you did hear from Liana herself. And yes, sure, she kinda sorta identified Milo as her murderer, blah, blah, blah. But I
Blah, blah, blah. Discounting evidence that he brought into the court. Like, they didn't have to do that. But there you go. Also, him saying, like, well, we all have biases, and you all share mine. To, like, discredit, like, any sort of responsibility and accountability for, like, having to confront biases. Like, well, you share mine, don't you? Everyone does. It's like, okay, everyone has biases, but not your specific ones. Like, we all have our own that we need to grapple with, sir.
want you to try to forget that. Because over the course of this trial, you've also heard a lot of other things. You've heard reasons Milo couldn't possibly be guilty. You've heard clips from my podcast, A Very Fatal Murder. Looks like we got some fans in the house. You've heard about the missing murder weapon, a strangulation drone that I'm positive, if turned up, would absolve my client of guilt and give the LAPD a real suspect to look for. But right now, I
Even
want
the
you to
fact
forget
that
about
the drone is
everything you heard
called a
during the trial
strangulation drone.
and everything
It was
you didn't hear.
invented and named by Milo Reed, the killer. So, like, yeah,
I'd like to talk to you
it shouldn't
about
have to be
something
this
else.
case. It should be
Something
open and shut.
important. The world outside of these 4 courtroom walls, and Milo's effect on that world. This trial isn't just about one man. It's about all of us and our future on this earth. To send Milo Reed to prison would be to deprive the ocean of affordable housing, to deprive our great nation of a super-speed suction tube transportation system, to deprive outer space of brand new, sustainable, man-made planets. I'm saying this not just as his lawyer, and not just as a
Sustainable,
reporter,
man-made
but as Milo's
planets.
friend. To find this man guilty would be a grave mistake that generations would regret for decades to come. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when you go off and deliberate, you're not just answering the question of, did Milo Reed kill Liana Choi Reed? You're answering the question of whether a podcast can deliver justice and whether a second season can improve upon the first while telling an entirely new story. Milo Reed is not the only one on trial here today, my
Yep,
friends.
he has to
The
bring it back to
system
the
is on trial,
podcast, obviously.
And we hope you deliver a guilty verdict. On the system, that is. On not guilty on Milo, that's important. Not guilty. Not guilty.
Yeah, you're a great lawyer being like, I hope you find my client guilty. It's like, okay.
The defense rests, and I'll say for the final time, case closed.
Thank you, members of the jury. You are now dismissed.
Members of the jury, you now have heard all testimony concerning this case. It is now up to you and you alone to determine what facts the evidence proves. You are now dismissed.
The jury has been dismissed to discuss their verdict. Will Milo Reed walk free, or will he spend the rest of his life behind bars? Find out after the break on A Very Fatal Murder live.
Whew, all right, I think that went pretty well.
The
Who knows?
break. It's like for as long as the jury is in deliberation. Like, how long is that break going to be? That's unknown.
Hey, Peter,
Yeah, David?
what do you think the jury's up to?
Well, deliberating, hopefully, but you never know. They might just be, chatting it up.
Okay, so hypothetical. If you were sequestered on a jury, what would you bring with you?
Well, that's a good question. Deliberation can take a while. I'd bring changes of clothes, some books if they allowed that, and definitely my bristle toothbrush.
Order. What's a bristle toothbrush?
Bristle is the only toothbrush subscription service that not only sends a new brush to your home every month, but also helps you keep track of your brushing via the Bristle app.
I've got one too, and I love it. You can see how you stack up against other brushers all over the world. What's
Do you
your rank?
see that ad tie-in? Wow, so
I'm
seamless.
1,692,231,526.
Wow, that's even higher than me.
Who's the number one brusher?
You'll have to sign up for Bristle to find out. Bristle. Brush better.
Just another
Welcome
surveillance
back.
item.
This is a very fatal murder live.
Also, like,
from the
how
Clever Shortridge
stupid
Criminal Justice Center
that
in
concept is of,
downtown
like,
Los Angeles.
yeah, let's
David,
track how much you're
tell us where
brushing.
we're at.
All right, so the jury is off deliberating.
Like, who
this could take
cares?
any amount of time at this point.
mean,
We've been here
for
for 4 days
health
now.
reasons,
it could be
we
a matter of
should
hours
be,
or
but,
weeks
like,
or even
using
months
it
before they
as, like,
return
a
with the
social
verdict.
tool
But
to
we've been
compare.
having some fun in here, haven't we? We don't mind waiting a little bit longer, do we? No, let's hear another round of applause for this audience. You guys have been great. Peter, Milo, why don't you go check in with the audience and see how they're doing?
All right, sir. What's your name?
Jake?
Hey, Jake. Have you been in the audience the whole 4 days that we've been waiting on this verdict?
Yeah, I have.
And how are you holding up?
Fine. It's fun.
All right, last question, Jake. Do you think Milo did it?
No comment.
Okay.
It's
playing close to
fun.
the chest. I like
Yeah,
that. Hey,
sounds
Milo,
very
who do you have over
convinced.
there?
Yes, you, ma'am. What's your name?
Get the hell away from me, you murderer!
Hey now.
David, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm being told the jury has ended their deliberations.
That was
and
her mom
we have
again.
a verdict.
All rise for the honorable judge in this
Liana, the
It's
person
all
who was
happening,
killed.
folks. The jury has entered the courtroom.
Will the jury deliver the verdict? Milo Reed stands accused of murder in the first degree, human trafficking, jaywalking, violating the Brentwood
Jaywalking.
Homeowners Association ban on premeditated homicide, and possession of a woman's corpse without a license.
Oh my god.
Jury, have you come to an agreement?
Because you have to have a license.
Then you may read the verdict.
After extensive deliberation,
They already do that with aura rings and whoop bracelets. Yep, exactly. It's like everything has to be surveilled, everything has to be monitored, and they do it under this pretense of health. So it's like, it's not even out of the realm of possibility. Yeah, it's like, this is what the world is that we're living in. But how it's always like, oh, this is about like tracking this. And it's like, where do you think this data is going? Who do you think is who are the parties that are benefiting most from having this kind of data about people?
the jury have found that men are in need of an upscale, masculine-oriented vegetable delivery app, and now they have one with Veggie Man. Finally, a vegetable delivery service for him.
Oh my god. That, along with like reading the verdict that they have to do an ad read.
Cauliflower, asparagus, whatever you want delivered right to you with Veggie Man. We, the jury, find these meals delicious. And in the case of Milo Reed versus the
health
state of
insurance
California,
companies,
for
exactly.
the murder of Liana Choi,
Big
we,
pharma.
the jury, find the defendant
Fuck shit, oh fuck, oh shit.
not guilty.
Holy shit, I won!
Oh my god.
I won!
Oh my
Yeah, life insurance.
Not guilty. Next time on A Very Fatal Murder.
Wait, so this was a real trial?
Oh man, I can't believe they
Wait, I
caught
thought
that.
they
Oh my
were
god, totally.
saying that he was
A very
guilty.
fatal murder is recorded in front of a live audience in beautiful downtown Los Angeles,
Anyway.
California. This episode is
Would've-
brought to you by Bristletooth Services. Hillcrest.
That would have been way too... that would have been way too out of the realm of possibility of him actually being found
Country
guilty.
Club, and me, David Pascal.
Oh, they were reading the charges. That's what it was.
Just don't tell him that.
The announcer is saying that he's David Pascal. He's the host's father, so he just announces that. And he doesn't know.
Hear that? That's the sound of our award-winning journalism. Subscribe to The Onion today
a
and
paper.
receive 12 monthly newspapers that smell even better than they sound. Go to membership.theonion.com to learn more.
I have to say, I love bookstores. I mean, clearly, but like the smell of bookstores, stationery. Their whoop said they slowed down on their cardio. The heart attack was their fault, actually. Yep. That tracks. That seems like that is what would be relayed, you know? Okay, so picking up from yesterday, we mentioned how, I mean, briefly, I didn't get to this though, of public lands being sold by the Trump administration, that, of course, the people of Utah have not agreed on this. There has not been any sort of voting because who cares about democracy, I guess. Do we have a democracy? Did we ever have a democracy? What does that even mean? Can you even have a so-called democracy when there are so many injustices happening? Anyway, this video is from Indian Country Today. They provide a lot of news on what is happening in indigenous communities. And so the title of this video is Native Leaders Slam Trump Decision to Shrink Utah Protected Lands. President Trump has sharply reduced the size of Bears Ears and Grand Staircase-Escalante national monuments in Utah, rolling back protections on lands sacred to many Native Americans. Former Interior Secretary Deb Haaland condemned the move, saying it hands, quote, sacred homelands and public lands over to billionaires and corporations. Reported by Amelia Schaefer.
Use the sizes of two national monuments. President Donald Trump just dramatically reduced.
Oh, maybe I should refresh this.
President Donald Trump dramatically reduced the sizes of two national monuments, which are both sacred sites in Utah. These sites are significant to many different indigenous nations. Reactions throughout Indian country were swift following the announcement on Monday morning that 90% of protected lands for Bear Ears National Monument and Grand Staircase-Escalante, both in southern Utah, would be diminished from what they previously were. Former Secretary of the Department of the Interior, Deb Haaland, who is Pueblo of Laguna, told us the Trump administration is once again handing our sacred homelands and public lands over to billionaires and corporations. And the move completely blindsided tribal leaders, like Anthony Sanchez Jr., who sits on the Pueblo of Zuni Tribal Council and serves as the Bear Ears Commission co-chair. He told us a lot of people are in shock at this time, and it's difficult to get their heads around. Bear Ears and Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monuments have ancient cliff dwellings, petroglyphs, and scenic canyons, all of which multiple tribes consider to be very sacred. What they also have are coal and uranium deposits, both of which state and administration officials want to make available for development and mining. A representative from the Bear Ears Youth Council, Emerson Hackford, told us, it's not so much that I feel anger, it's that I feel a sense of mourning and loss for that landscape. And for tribal leaders and advocates, this is not the end of the fight, it's just the beginning. As always, check out ictnews.org for a full story, as well as our social media pages like Indian Country Today on Facebook. From Menominee, Ho-Chunk, and Anishinaabe homelands, I'm Amelia Schaefer. President Donald Trump just...
So that's happening. Once again, the capitalist extraction to feed capitalist greed is unending. It is endlessly thirsty for money, resources, expansion, blood, labor. It's like all of this is completely unacceptable. It should be unacceptable to all of us, especially with how this is a pattern of this larger colonial project of ethnic cleansing that is happening in the U.S. at large, also in the places that the U.S. has funded and has vested interests in extraction and colonial expansion, such as with the genocidal nation state of Israel, and what is happening with Iran and how that is about resources as well. And this cannot be separated once again from the ethnic cleansing of what is happening with ICE and how there are certain groups of people being targeted who are indigenous to the Americas. So, like, this is all related. I did want to show some reactions from locals. So first I wanted to get the indigenous perspective, at least like briefly, that we saw there. Even though Amelia Schaefer is not indigenous, the reporter, but like she actually was contacting people who are. This is by ABC4, a local news station. Also, we do have an ad break happening in 5 seconds, just as a warning. But I did want to get some of these reactions to what is going on from locals. And most people are upset. And sadly, sadly, as like we have talked about before, there are certain groups of people, especially people with a lot of privilege, white people in particular, that are somehow caring about the public lands being sold and extracted because they are more interested in it for like hiking and photography, which, you know, like everyone should be able to enjoy these lands. But really, these lands should be given back to indigenous tribes, that we have to have land back and reparations at the forefront of collective liberation, and how people just can't seem to see how this is connected. I mean, there are some people that do, but many people do not, and that is just incredibly disappointing to be like, this is part of a continuation of what it even means to have like settler colonialism and this capitalist colonial extraction that started with settlers coming to Turtle Island in the first place and stealing land and resources. Would be a real shame if people were to occupy the land and prevent extraction. Yep.
Let's take a visit to Southern Utah. Our Southern Utah correspondent, Cannon Seacrest, is in Escalante with reaction from locals there.
Here in Escalante, people have lived with the national monument for nearly 3 decades.
Ugh, this is how Utahns say it. Escalante.
And today I found a community that remains deeply divided over what the boundary change could mean
White
for its
Utahns,
future.
that is.
From local businesses to longtime residents, President Trump's executive order has people talking. For some, the reduction of the monument's boundaries brings concerns about what could happen to the land.
We know that we saw a lot of destruction with the last time it shrunk, particularly on really fragile landscape. And I don't think people realize how much that can affect, you know, the breeding of insects and other animals, and, you know, just the loud noises of the ATVs and the marks that they leave, and it's just really destructive.
Patty says she believes the monument's protection should have remained in place and worries about...
Yeah, so this isn't the first time this has happened. It's been reduced already. And there are a lot of, like, how we were saying, hieroglyphics and art and cliff dwellings that should be preserved. But clearly, you know, in capitalism, in white supremacy, colonialism, in this time of just overt fascism, but like, to be clear, this, like I mentioned before, like they're mentioning, this has not come out of nowhere. There has already been a reduction in this. But even like the topic of public lands, of it being owned or that viewed as like the property of the state, this is also part of the problem. These lands should be given back to indigenous tribes in order to have sovereignty over these lands and have indigenous sovereignty in general, because this is part of a larger movement for honoring treaties that have not been honored, actually wanting and providing reparations for the harm that has been done with these colonial projects.
This second reduction could mean.
It doesn't It makes sense to me that a president would decide to remove protections from public land.
But not everyone here sees it that way. Kevin Griffin owns the local grocery store in Escalante, and it's a place his family has called home for 7 generations. He believes today's action is a step in the right direction for both local businesses and those who come to recreate.
Most of us on the right, I think we want it gone. We want it completely gone like it was in the 90s. But I think this is a good compromise for both sides to, kind of get what they want a little bit.
Kevin.
How? How, my dude? Okay. I need to save this clip because once these corporations come in and run him out of business, probably steal the land and buy out his business, and then we'll hear from him. Then we'll hear of how oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. Meanwhile, talking about disregarding what people are saying when it comes to this is deeply harmful, because once again, when people are aligned with oppressive forces and do not view this this occupation of indigenous lands as what it is, occupation, that it's oh yeah, the land, we own the land, the land is supposed to be extracted for resources. It's this type of mentality of wanting to have domination and over land and people, so that there is no sense of sustainability and being equitable. So we will hear from this person. I mean, maybe we won't, but I'm guessing once the corporations come in and run him out of business and take his land, where he will probably be leaning. Oh, hello, Water. Thank you for being here. Good to see you. Oh, thank you. That's so nice. Both sides, how normal people don't understand that the oppressor is also against them. I know. The willful ignorance of we were talking about earlier of it's just so much easier to be ignorant. It's hard to try and deconstruct the brainwashing and propaganda and colonization of our minds that we have been conditioned to be aligned with these oppressive systems, but also that is necessary if we are wanting to see our own humanity, let alone see the humanity in others. That clearly when you have people who are oh yeah, this is I don't even want to know what his business practices are but you can probably tell just by yeah, this is okay. Ugh. I think that's really well put, Water. How are things with you?
That his family has watched Escalante change over the past 3 decades. And
also, I know most people here are familiar with Androgynous Water, but go follow, subscribe to their channel. An excellent streamer providing a safe space for people to land. And that is relaxing and decompressing. Not really what I do here as much. But it is so necessary, so thank you for doing all of that. Glad to hear you're doing well. Doing all right, just keeping on, I guess,
the monument has hurt local businesses.
I went to Bryce Canyon a couple years ago in the dead of the winter, and there were more people there in the dead of the winter than we have here in the summer. And I got thinking, it's because you can drive right to the park. It's still going to be public land. It's just going to be less restricted.
Whether people...
Okay. People are so dumb. People are so dumb sometimes. Have you ever considered, sir, that maybe there are more people in the winter than there are in the summer now because it's fucking hot? Hello? That people used to, back in the day, that I can even remember in my lifetime, want to go to southern Utah and visit because they actually have vacation time in the summer, or people are taking vacation. I mean, some people don't have, some people actually have the chance to have vacation time, but how people have more of an incentive to do that now because they are wanting to escape when with the air being so polluted in the winter, with the inversion that happens where we have like the Salt Lake Valley being a bowl essentially with mountains, and all of the cars that are here, especially over the years with like in more people coming in from out of state, that all of this pollution just hangs in the air, and it is so harmful to people's health, clearly, that it's like that's a reason, even more than it used to be, for people to be escaping the inversion, is what it's called, this highly polluted air, and going south, and that people are not doing it in the summer because it is too hot.
Today's order as a win for local control or a loss for public land protections. One thing is
local control, as if the locals are going to have a say. Privilege makes people so dumb, where people are like, oh yeah, well, like, I have had a say in what's going on so far. It's like, well, you haven't really, but like, you just have the illusion that you do. You just have privilege more than other people, and that makes you feel good and makes you feel like you, in order to have this position and keep it, you have to be stepping on people, on the necks of other people, and also diminishing any sort of like these people who claim to be like pro-life, because having lived in Utah my whole life, basically grown up here, I know what I know what his views are without even having to know. I would love to be surprised, but sadly I doubt I would be. He's probably pro-life and yet does not think about any of like the ecosystems that are going to be completely decimated by this extraction, not thinking about the sanctity of life when it comes to like respecting the land and the creatures that live on it, like let alone human beings who will also be affected by this, especially the people who live closest to these areas. So just like the stupidity is depressing. It's really depressing, but also like some of the people who will be like the first to complain, but also not admit that they were wrong or like have any sort of sense of accountability for their views. Like that's that storyline. It's happened time and time again in Utah, but clearly not exclusive to Utah. This is sadly the story of humanity and existing in these oppressive systems, and the people who are buying into these systems to feel better about themselves when they are affected, like the rest of us. Maybe not as much as others, but they still are, like what you were saying, Water. And the further extraction will just make it hotter. And the fact that they aren't going to want to make it so like there's tourism. Like that is which is a huge issue in and of itself. Like in order to decolonize, like tourism is not helpful. And most of the time, like jobs that, when people are saying like, oh, tourism creates jobs, these jobs are deeply exploited, and people are very vulnerable in these jobs to horrible working conditions most of the time. And it's not going to encourage tourism. It's encouraging corporations and like businesses to be on this land. And they are not wanting to like have to exist in these conditions. So the people who are actually making these decisions will not be living locally, because this is what happens when it comes to capitalist extraction. I saw some BBC coverage earlier. They had a story about the drought, wildfires, and heat waves back to back, without ever mentioning climate change or policies that address it. Yeah. It's like growing up in conservative Utah, growing up Mormon like I did, which is an extremely conservative, colonial, white supremacist religion, that it, like I was taught to believe for a long time, that it's like, oh, it's like you're just being a tree hugger. But then like also understanding that like if you claim to care about life at all, if you claim to care about like this earth, then, or like any sort of existence on this earth, then like you have to be you have to be incorporating that into your worldview. But it's not about that. It's always about the domination of the land, not actually being like stewards of the land, is what like a phrase people would say when it is just code for like having ownership. Oh, and the possible extinction of our native bees. Ugh, bees are so important. It would be so cool if the planet we share was treated as the absolute magical treasure it is. That is such a beautiful way of saying that, too. It's like, I mean, I'm not what you would call like an outdoorsy person, especially growing up in Mormonism where so many activities you're like forced to be outside. We're like, we're going on a hike for this. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't like these people. I feel uncomfortable. Or like girls camp, like where you're like camping, like also like the gendered binary and shit there, or like church campouts where there's like rampant abuse that happens at these things. So like, I wish I had been able to like come to terms of like loving nature not within that context, but especially with like having to reframe that now later in life, and like having it come from a decolonizing lens is much more freeing, actually being able to enjoy some of these things, you know? But like what happens in Utah especially is that like, yes, there are places that are considered public lands, but a lot of the time like you need a car in order to get there. And so it's like just revealing the larger class issues of people needing to even have access to a car, of like there not being like bus routes that go there or other forms of public transportation, of it being prohibitive to people from lower classes in the working class. That is just like, so the only people who actually get to enjoy public lands that are owned by this colonizer oppressive system of so-called democracy that's based off of this stolen land are people who are from like the upper middle classes, and they have to have enough free time and be able to make enough money in order to have that free time to even enjoy these lands to begin with. All they had to offer was hyper-individualized solutions, like planting the odd wildflower or a hose pipe ban, nothing on actual systemic policy. Yeah, it's like they're even like the smallest ways to acknowledge changing what is going on cannot even be addressed, because once people start doing that, then it all starts unraveling of like, well, then why isn't this happening? It's like, what does Toni Morrison say in The Bluest Eye in the introduction? Like, why is too hard of a question? Let's see. There is really nothing more to say except why, but since why is difficult to handle, one must take refuge in how. Of like, people, like once we start saying stuff like that, then we have to get into the why. And really there isn't a good why. It's really all about greed, and that's not a good enough answer. That shouldn't be a good enough answer for all of us. Where There Are No Doctors talks about land redistribution and wealth redistribution as a preventative medicine for diseases and diarrhea and malnutrition and clean water and better housing and all that. Yeah, yep. Of like, this is already in these rural areas of Utah, they're already healthcare deserts. It's like, having worked for the state health department, I know this. And as like one of the first people, like having been part of like a national board for like tobacco and like health programs, tobacco programs and health departments, I was like the communications chair or whatever. And like having learned, like being some like among this group of people, like who is being impacted first with a lot of these cuts that were happening with Doge, that like people wouldn't believe me when I came back, especially being like a non-binary person, that they're like, oh, you're just like being a liberal. I'm like, okay, don't call me a liberal. But they're like, you're just wanting to fearmonger, and like you just don't like this administration. And it's like, okay, well, we need to be talking about how all of these places are going to be affected. Me understanding already that there are healthcare deserts in rural areas, and me having to like talk to local health departments and be like, you need to plan for budget cuts now, and them not believing me, and them having to lay people off, or like certain programs having to shut down, and like healthcare centers being closed. That it's like, this is already an issue for rural areas, and like the politics that are just constantly like pumped into these areas of propaganda hurt people. It's like they're working class most of the time, and they're deeply hurt by all of these policies. Okay, we have another ad break in about 5 seconds, just as a warning. If third world workers can organize for a better future, my question to the American viewer is, why can't you redistribute land and wealth? Yeah, exactly. It really is disheartening a lot of the time, but like as we've talked about on previous streams, of like even and especially the infrastructure of the US makes it like how cities are even built are ensuring people to not be connecting with one another. Of like, this is how like in rural areas too, why there is such a way to like control people's minds, is that like people are spread far apart and don't really gather together very often. And this means that people are hardly ever exposed to different viewpoints other than of their own like immediate family. And most of the time people are Mormon, or they are going to church where they're just marinating in this echo chamber of all of the same kinds of ideas that are extremely hurtful to the membership of people there, of like people who are members of the church. So it's like oppressive systems within oppressive systems, of how like in Utah there has been no separation of church and state, that we have been living under this religious despotism for a very long time. Maybe that's not a great way of saying that. Religious authority for such a long time, since the colonization of Mormon pioneers coming to this land and being like, oh, we're gonna call this Zion, like that. There's Zion's National Park. Like, that's not an accident, of like this larger pattern of behavior of using religion to justify political domination and oppression and ethnic cleansing and genocide, displacement, stolen land. And yeah, like what you're saying, Boonso, of like so many issues would be solved by redistributing wealth and land, and us building out systems that are more built on communal efforts, communal, communist, that people are actually educated and can have the skills to be equipped with surviving. Mormons are Zionists. Yep, exactly. Hello, Stuart Little is my son. Welcome. Did you catch my signal message? Oh, I didn't. I need to check that. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, I will think about it. Is that okay? I'll let you know a final decision. Right now, I'll be mulling it over.
That this has been an ongoing issue for years that continues to divide the community here in Escalante. Reporting for ABC4 News, Cannon Seacrest.
Okay, so that's happening in Utah. The bricks and minifig situation really showed how entrenched Mormonism is in the structures of power for people who are less informed. I know that whole situation, I can often be when like Utah is in the news in that way, where I'm like, so many people are weighing in, and maybe I should be in local or like highlighting it, but so many people are talking about it. But it often can be like stressful and annoying to be like, I live here and I already know this shit. You know, not to be like be annoying that way, but especially with like cops and their behavior of like, yeah, I lived in American Fork. I can tell you, or like how I have called it in my mind, like American Fork and socket, like electrical socket. That's how it feels to live there sometimes, a lot of the time, of like having encounters with cops there. I could tell you exactly how they behave. That is like, what are we doing? Like, this has like most of the people, like how people are saying like it's like a mafia style like situation. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's just how it is living here, because most people are Mormon. Like the predominant religion is Mormonism, and the people who are drawn to the system, like drawn to working for the state, drawn to working for law enforcement, a lot of the time are Mormons. And so there is this alignment in the religion and the political system, the governing system, that is like, yeah, people are going to act in a way that is indicative of their religious beliefs. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad that it's been covered and that people have been talking about it, but it's so funny, like, seeing Utah, like, pop up in ways like this, of, like, that situation, like, even in, like, reality TV of, like, the secret lives of Mormon wives, or, like, the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Like, I haven't been able to watch that. I've really only watched, like, the Real Housewives of Atlanta, which is not given enough credit for all of these women, their contribution to pop culture in general. Just calling that out. But a lot of the time I can like avoid stuff like that for that same reason of like, I need a little more distance from this place to actually like enjoy some content about this, where some people are like, oh, isn't this interesting, where they're talking about like soaking and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I've heard about this my whole life. Like, people talk about this. I went to school at BYU, where that was like the first, where that was created supposedly, that I'm like, I don't want to have to think about it. Also, many of these people are like the kinds of like rich kids that I would have gone to high school with, that are like deeply uninteresting in many ways, but they just get a lot of attention because their families have money. So, yeah, that's my take. I saw the previous franchise owners were communist authors or something. I did see that too. And I'm like, of course that is not being talked about as much. And why they're trying to like demean the previous owners from what I was seeing. Would you ever consider living in a different state? I would love to live in a different state. That's a great question. I would love to. A lot of the time, though, it's like, okay, so how do we make that happen, of like having the means to like move somewhere else, or like even me like finding a job now, like in Utah, it's becoming like increasingly more difficult, where like, and I'm not alone in this, clearly, like many queer people, trans people, gender nonconforming people, especially when you have these intersections of marginalization of race and disability and immigration status and such, of it just being a really hard place to find a job. Like, Utah was one of the first places to implement like a bathroom ban for trans people. And like, as someone who worked for the state of Utah as like a public worker, that affected me. And so that means like you can't, like, I wouldn't go to the bathroom at all at work because there was like a tip line reporting people. That is like, that is so dystopian and sadly not surprising, and that's not an isolated incident in history, of like Jim Crow laws and how like there is this resurgence in laws like that. But yeah, it's just a matter of like, okay, what is the order of operations? Like moving to a place where like you have limited resources and then finding a job, or like the ideal is to be able to find a job in a different place and then move. But then like, okay, when is like the risk versus reward? And also like the longer you're here, the more at risk you become, and like the chances lessen over time. So this isn't for me to be like, oh, employ me or whatever, but like I'm not the only one experiencing this, of like so many people having to deal with this situation, and in more severe of ways than what I experienced too. Soaking is a weird one. Like if I hold out my arm with a knife in my hand and get pushed, is it not murder? Yeah, exactly. And it used to, like, it's come to be known more of like people saying, like, I grew up understanding soaking of like people just like not thrusting, but then I think there became even more of like these wives' tales, and also Mormons are really weird and like trying to get around all these rules because people are horny and believe in like not having sex until you're married. And then I think with like the pushing on the bed type of situation is what came around as like that happened after. At least that was my understanding of it. As a trans person, I enjoy the Canadian other gendered hospitals, washrooms. I mean, yeah, also if there's more availability for like gender affirming care in Canada too. I love that though, of like even just having a gender neutral bathroom. It's like you do realize like these idiots that are wanting to police like who goes where, that it's like your bathroom at home is gender neutral. Do you have a problem with that? It's just all about controlling people and erasing people, clearly. But anyway, thank you for asking. I appreciate that and the support. Just figuring life out, hoping for the best, but also trying to be clear-eyed about what the situation is, So in Utah, there, like, as we were talking about people experiencing discrimination, and I know, like, we're continuing to talk about heavy topics, but I think we need to be discussing this. Last week, there was this attack happened at a mall of a Nazi far-right Christian nationalist who attacked someone, who attacked Syed Sohail Uddin, who is Muslim and was working at a kiosk in a mall. He was attacked with a knife, and how this is just completely unacceptable. And he survived the attack, and were there two people? Maybe I'm not understanding this. So this is from the Palestinian Solidarity, and who else? Salt Lake Artists Against Genocide, Utah's for a Just Peace, PSL Salt Lake, Healthcare Workers for Palestine. We are disgusted and enraged at the stabbing, attack, and assassination attempt on Muslim kiosk worker Syed Sohail Uddin at Valley Fair Mall on Monday. The attacker, far-right Christian nationalist Peter Michael Larson, 43, declared after the incident that he targeted Uddin because he was Muslim. Larson stabbed the man at least 15 times. Alhamdulillah, he survived the attack. But Uddin was left in critical condition and with serious wounds across his body and vital organs. He reportedly has a long road to recovery ahead. So, like, I'm glad that he survived, but, like, this is unacceptable. We salute the courageous members of the community from different backgrounds and cultures who put themselves at risk to physically disarm and incapacitate the brutal assailant. This act of humanity and cross-cultural solidarity represents the true spirit of our community. Yeah, and this is something that is common with a lot of these attacks. It's like, oh, it's not like security, like mall security cops that are stopping what's going on. It's everyday people. And I saw a video of community members beating up this racist shithead, and that was really great to see, because it's like, that needs to happen more. Like, we need a, like, the only good Nazi is what, you know, fill in the blank. Hate and xenophobia have no place in Utah. This hate crime comes mere months after 2 teenage gunmen opened fire on the Islamic Center of San Diego, killing 3 Muslim men. The murders were determined to be a hate crime linked to white supremacist extremism. It is impossible to separate these incidents from the broader political climate characterized by an escalating U.S. imperialist war on West Asia, from Palestine to Lebanon to Iran. U.S. bombs, U.S. weapons, and U.S. taxpayer funding are massacring children and civilians, destroying essential infrastructure, and attempting to strip these nations of their basic right to sovereignty and self-determination. All of this is justified by dehumanizing and racist U.S.-Israeli rhetoric about Arabs, Muslims, and the peoples of Swana region, amplified across the world by the trillion-dollar corporate media machine, media, industrial war complex. The most extreme far-right segments of the population are inevitably legitimized and activated by this propaganda, taking it upon themselves to socially uphold these racist narratives. We are witnessing a similar escalation of insightful rhetoric in the U.S. domestically. So this is something that we talk about on the stream a lot. And I'm really glad, like, I love seeing this kind of advocacy, but also people connecting the dots in this way. Like, clearly, I'm not the only one talking about this. There are other people who think this as well and can witness it, are experiencing it. So, hello, Bounce House. Welcome. How are things with you? A new friend of mine gave me 5 Pakistani cigarettes. Ooh. I love that. Stacking cancer. I love that. I will smoke occasionally. I like to say, and I hadn't before, like, being pushed out of my job for the, like, tobacco prevention and control program. And I like to say, like, working for the government drove me to smoke. We're ranked among the worst on the rainbow map for gender recognition now. Oh, in the UK? Ugh. Yeah. Thank you for sharing this research. Hopefully his recovery is as comfortable and quick as possible. Yep, exactly. Last week, 12 neo-Nazis were arrested for planning an attack on a Muslim event of 15,000 people. I know, and I saw the other day as well that there was people planning another attack on a school. Yep, there's been multiple attacks on mosques, and 5 people stabbed outside a mosque in Scotland a few weeks ago. 0 counter-terror meeting, 0 new allocated funds on security. Yep, we can see very clearly what their priorities are, you know? Yeah, thank you for sharing this. Damn. Yeah, that's bleak. That's pretty bleak. European average, European Union average. Yeah, Iceland is a better place, possibly the best place from what's seen here. Which, once again, like, Iceland experiences their own issues. Also, like, a place that's been colonized. But yeah, thank you for sharing this. This is a great resource. I'll include this with links in the Discord if people are interested in joining. Currently figuring out roles and such for unlocking channels, but that is in the works. Okay. We are witnessing a similar escalation of insightful rhetoric in the U.S. domestically. As we write this statement, the Trump administration is attempting to excuse recent ICE murders by painting the victims as terrorists or criminals. Again, we have seen people of various national backgrounds put their bodies and their lives between ICE and our immigrant community. The same racism and dehumanization that justify violence abroad are used to justify violence at home. Our struggles are all connected. Yep. That's always great to see. Okay, we have an ad break in 30 seconds. These are running now, so just as a warning. Also, the offer or putting out this query, emphasis on the query, like what we all prefer for ad breaks, like shorter ad breaks in a shorter time frame, longer ad breaks in a longer time frame in between. Let me know what you all prefer. I'm eating copious amounts of garlic confit, and therefore life is good. Amazing. I have turbo, so I don't see any. Wow. Sounds good. We'll continue. Also glad to hear that you're having some good stuff to eat. It's amazing how much that can help with existential dread. Of like, oh, here's a moment of like having something that's enjoyable. We demand an end to all U.S. imperialist wars of aggression from West Asia to Latin America and the Caribbean. We demand an end to all hateful and racist rhetoric that seeks to justify war abroad while inciting xenophobic hate crimes within the United States. We will continue to fight for a society that uproots the conditions that breed hatred, racism, and xenophobic violence, so that attacks like the stabbing of Sohail at Valleyfair Mall become impossible. Yeah. So, we do have a link in their bio, I believe, what they said. For a GoFundMe. I'm not seeing this. Maybe I need to log in or something. I mean, Instagram on a desktop is bleak, but I will look that up. I did want to mention what is going on in India. This is not getting as much media coverage, but like fascists all over the world are very scared for their positions, as we are having hurrah hurrah Palestine, exactly, free Palestine, free the Congo, free Sudan, free all oppressed people. So Narendra Modi is a war criminal. We need to be calling that out. And he, like, speaking of no separation of church and state, Hindu nationalism is just so incredibly destructive and dangerous and dehumanizing. And there are a lot of protests that are happening right now. And they are not really getting much coverage in the world. And Rohan Davis is a creator on YouTube that I enjoy. He has some really great content that's educational. But yeah, it's especially when people are protesting working conditions, of like politicians calling young people cockroaches, like that spurring a movement of young people from the working class resisting, but also protests happening from climate change and corporate greed, this continued extraction of the land, and there is a whole lot of brutality happening as well. There are about 7 different regional protests going on in India right now. Yep. Concept. Modi's dogs when Indians start talking about rights. The concept triggers him into going on a 5-minute slurred speech about monsoons. I haven't seen that, but I heard that. Yeah, he was talking about the activists that are protesting. So, even while all of this is going on, the bleak situation that we are experiencing globally, being oppressed by all of these forces, at the same time, like, it should give us hope that these fascist cowards who are colonizers and just anti-human in all of their viewpoints, that they are afraid. And they should be. They should be afraid of us, especially organizing collectively, that we have a lot of power when it comes to people power and actually giving a shit about each other. Like, there is, like, I know there may be some people who don't believe in this, but like the power of that and like the shared energy and like magic there of like us building a better world that we want to see. It's like that is something that is worth fighting for. Also, I love his art style on his channel. Like this green. Look at us Daisies. Like when I like I have all these like Daisy creators that I follow, and like the amount of like this color of green as I have like this in my background and like peacocks. I'm like, we love this. Saw young people were protesting, saw the cops beating people. Yep, apparently there was a 4-year-old that got killed in one of these protests, and it's like, this is what fascism is. This is what oppressors do. There is no, like, when people want to claim like they're pro-life or whatever in order to take away women's rights, that it is really only about like the sanctity of life for them, not for all human beings, not for the environment, the earth that gives back to us, that we're just like so blessed to even like be on this planet. Indeed, we will make the fascists fall, but only together. Yep. Yeah, our liberation is intertwined, and it is hard talking about world events and not feeling like we fall into despair, but also they're afraid of us for a reason. There's a reason why there's so much censorship happening, why there is so much pushback against protests, against unionizing, because they are the ruling class. They're pushing back against our rising power. I don't know if you use Instagram at all. I do, but this account is such a good resource for worldwide news. Ooh, fight for a future? Amazing. Communism is the answer. Those who do not move will never notice the weight of their chains. Yep. Damn. Thank you, Linton. You really are just a well of resources. I appreciate it. Are you familiar with Nintendo Daisy? No. Is that a streamer? It's a cute name. Specific pictures from the protests. Some may be TOS. Okay, I won't show this at first. I'll look through some of this. Oh, I need to log in. I'll look through this and possibly show some tomorrow. But thank you for sharing. Yeah, all of these cops attacking people in New Delhi. It's like, do you see how many people there are? That should give us hope. That, like, the reason they are so violent is because they are afraid of us. They are afraid of us as a collective, especially. Tens of thousands of youth and workers have marched on New Delhi today, demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Modi and Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. Fury has erupted over the repeated systemic leaks of the country's NEET exam papers, which allow many who can afford to pay an easy way past one of the world's harshest medical examinations. Yep. Protesters decry endemic state corruption and contempt for young people and have formed their own cockroach party, named after a senior judge referred to students as cockroaches. Capitalism has nothing to offer the people of tomorrow. All over the world, we demand better. Inquilab Zindabad. Wow. That, yeah, it can be difficult to learn about this and look at this stuff, watch it, but also the fact that they are coming back with such violence against us shows that we have a lot of power and that they are afraid of us, and they should be. Okay, I'm finding this GoFundMe. Also, all of the like crowdsourcing and funding of people, like this should give us hope. Ooh, retro streamer? Okay, I'll have to check them out. Thank you, Bounce House. Meow, Bouncy, that is so cute. Hello, Tan. Namaste. Welcome. You're looking through it now. I mean, meow. There are more of us than there are of them, it's true. Inkilab is in the bud. Praise Inkilab. I'm not sure. I don't know what Inkilab means. I'm shaming my ancestors. How are you doing, Tan? Okay, so this is the person, Syed Sohail Uddin, that was attacked in Utah, but there is this GoFundMe that has already raised over $380,000. I mean, the medical expense for everything, I'm sure, is just astronomical. Sohail is a devoted husband and father who has always worked hard to support his family. Recently, Sohail was the victim of a horrific hate crime, suffering over 15 stab wounds. He is now in critical condition, facing multiple surgeries for his hands, heart, and lungs. The road ahead is long and uncertain, and his family is deeply worried about his recovery and well-being. Sohail does not have health insurance, and the medical bills for his emergency care, surgeries, and ongoing physical therapy are overwhelming. As the main provider for his wife and children, Sohail's absence has left his family in a vulnerable position, both emotionally and financially. Luna and those close to Sohail are reaching out for help to ensure he receives the care he needs and to support his family during this incredibly difficult time. Please help us get Sohail the help he needs. Your support will go directly towards his medical expenses and rehabilitation, giving him a chance to heal and return to his loved ones. Any contribution, no matter the size, will make a difference. Thank you for your kindness and for standing with Sohail and his family. So if you can, I mean, I know there are so many ways we can be giving back, but this would be very appreciated for him and his family. And there really is no replacement for the collective solidarity that we are seeing in like standing up against this hate crime of like, this is unacceptable. It shouldn't be happening to begin with, you know, but also how like there are so many people wanting to do something to change this world that we are in, that like when it is so difficult to hold on to hope at times, it's stuff like this of seeing people rallying around, of people gathering in New Delhi and in resisting the corruption and the brutality, and seeing these like ICE protests that were happening over the weekend, and talking about like even having a discourse, like thank you to everyone who is willing to be here, like a blessing to you for wanting to create a better world, that like there is power in that. I believe in that. And that even just talking about this kind of stuff, it's like no replacement for organizing, but there's a reason why they are the ruling class. They are limiting our speech, why they have to buy up all of these media organizations and outlets and entertainment outlets, because they're very concerned about what we see and the kind of information that we have available. So thank you all for being here. It is greatly appreciated. And also for being willing to have conversations that we do here. Yeah, there are more of us than there are of them. Kilab. It is translated to Long Live the Revolution. Oh, I love that. I'm going to be using that more. Inkilab Zindabad. Good. Decompress time with cats. Getting them to play with catnip. Oh, you're giving them catnip for the first time. Oh. If you ever have any like videos or pictures, those are more than welcome. How are Gamora and Ghibli doing? They're so cute. And I'm glad that you're having time to decompress. I know that you've been through a lot lately, especially. I don't know if we're able to, well, while we are, sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place. I was going to be talking about, what would a communist do if elected to office? But especially with you talking about that, Linton, maybe I'll review this before I show it so we're not wasting time. Instead, while we are talking about collective liberation, solidarity, how about we talk about ways that we can be fighting back, which is with our Weingarten rights, when we have a union, in order to be protecting ourselves as workers. This is something that we have been talking about here. And I was going to show this tomorrow, but with all of that heavy stuff, I want to focus as well on like what tools we do have available to us, how we can equip ourselves and protect ourselves. So this is specifically for workplaces that have unions. If you do not have a union associated with your work, I'm gonna be pulling up some resources. There is some trainings that are available by the United States Federation of Worker Cooperatives. I'm sharing in the chat so that people can get organized that way. Because this is what the ruling class is afraid of, us actually talking about shit and doing something about it. Actually expressing our outrage, learning, understanding, and like having access to information. How are you? I'm doing all right, trying to keep the faith, moving forward, still like sending out a lot of job applications and such, and finding moments of levity and joy throughout the day. Honestly, like, this is I don't care if this is cheesy, but streaming is something I greatly enjoy, and it's thanks to all of you that it's even possible for me to do this. So thank you very much. It means a lot to me. If you don't have a union, start salting. Yep. Exactly. Are you sure you'll be committing to a lot of pictures? I am fine with that. This is something I am willing to bear. That's a burden I'm willing to take on. Thanks for mentioning them, checking them out. I know, I need to check them out as well. Nintendo Daisy. Oh. Thank you. Thank you for that correction. Also, I did get the ads all set up. So we have ads running in about 30 seconds, just as a warning. But after we watch this video on Weingarten rights, I did want to go over what we should read next, because I am working on getting more books so that we have them in the works. But from a couple of suggestions that I've gotten, like Agnes Gray and The Life of Worker Bees, but have some options that we can be reading in the meantime. I wanted to run that by you after we watch this. Okay. So this is by PSE-SEIU Local, 1948. I don't know what that stands for. Public School Employees of Washington. Okay. Public school employees. Very cool. Yeah, they have a lot of trainings. Subscribing to them.
Hi, I'm a supervisor.
And I'm a PSC union steward. Did you know that when a supervisor,
like me,
calls you into a meeting that could lead to discipline, you are entitled to have a representation, like me?
Okay, I may have to refresh this, because that may pop up. If it's not showing the captions right away, that's usually an indication that it's going to be like, content not found.
Hi, I'm a supervisor.
And I'm a PSC union steward. Did you know that when a supervisor,
like me,
calls you into a meeting that could lead to discipline, you are entitled to have a representation, like me? These meetings are called Weingarten meetings.
But an HR director, principal, or supervisor like me isn't required to tell an employee of their right to representation. The employee has to ask for it.
That's right. Although some contracts have that bargaining provision in them that notification is required. Either way, union members must be given time to contact their PSE representative or shop steward prior to the meeting.
I know. I learned my lesson last time.
The Weingarten rule applies to all of these supervisory investigations that could result in disciplinary findings.
Now, we are going to show you some examples that will help you represent a coworker during a Weingarten meeting.
For a PSE union steward, the first step is to meet with the employee and find out as much as possible.
Okay, so for clarification, like in some previous videos that we've watched on this topic, they're going to be primarily speaking to union reps, or shop stewards is a term I just recently learned from these videos that is the same as a union rep. And so that is the primary audience. But I will be interjecting with some advice for, I'm not a lawyer, so just throwing that out. I'll try to provide some disclaimers for the things that I'm talking about as well, but just to help people feel equipped as workers, not just having education for the reps themselves, but to make sure that we all have as much information as possible in protecting ourselves in the workplace. I'll be interjecting as we go along. And if you all have any advice as well for like how workers can keep themselves protected, that is very welcome.
Union Stewart handles this specific situation.
Thank you so much for being here for this meeting today.
So
I
much
am really
garlic.
nervous.
I'm happy to help and glad you called. Can you
I'm
tell
so
me a little
happy
bit
for
more about
you.
what happened?
Well, I showed up for work on Monday at my normal time, and when I got to the classroom, the teacher told me that I was late. I have no idea what she was talking about. And then I get this investigation letter. I'm really scared. I've never been in trouble before.
Did anyone inform you that you needed to come in early on Monday?
You know, I did get an email from the principal on Saturday telling me to come in an hour early, but it was the weekend, and honestly, I didn't see that message until after everything happened on Monday.
The employer is required to give you a 2-week notice before any shift change, according to our collective bargaining agreement. And we're going to bring
Chickpeas, rice paper, pepper, MSG, garlic confit, rosemary and thyme. Oh, that sounds so good. You're making me hungry.
I want you to know they're going to be asking some questions at the meeting, and it's possible that HR is going to be present on request by the principal. It's important to always remain honest, keep your answers short and concise. If you don't know the answer to a question, just say, "I don't remember." But the most important part is to remain truthful.
All right.
Yeah, so this situation they're talking about if someone is being called in by the boss, a supervisor, a manager, where they're guessing that it is disciplinary action, that you are allowed to have a union rep there. And this is part of your Weingarten rights. But the supervisor has to provide notification in a certain amount of time that I am looking up just as a reminder. Maybe they already went over that and I was not plugged in. But they do need to let your union rep know in a certain amount of time. Otherwise, they're violating your Weingarten rights. But also, like in a previous video that we watched, if a union rep is not able to be there in time, for like the general advice, especially legally, in order to protect the union, is to let the worker not have representation there. And also to document that and say like, oh, this notification did not happen. And to take screenshots of things, especially for you as a worker, if you are experiencing anything that is untoward in the workplace. I mean, we're exploited like every second of every day, just generally. But if something is happening in your workplace, document things. Take screenshots of conversations. If you can have things in writing, especially if people are trying to do things off the books and say, like they're trying to schedule a meeting over a phone call, they're trying to schedule a meeting or have like disciplinary action, say things to you in person so that they are not intentionally having documentation of things. That is a red flag, and you should try to have workarounds for that. So like if someone engages in this kind of behavior, supervisor, or there's like some sort of harassment that you are experiencing from another employee, having written documentation of this is really imperative for building up a case. So whether that is like talking to a coworker over a chat, over an email, a text, and taking screenshots of that and saying like, so this has been happening to me in the workplace. And then especially if you can cross-reference it to like, I was, like my supervisor came and talked to me between this meeting and this meeting. You can take a screenshot of your calendar and the meetings that you have available, but then also stating it so that you have a record of that. This is very important. Of like, you would rather have too much documentation to be sorting through than not enough. And it can be very difficult to have the presence of mind to do this kind of stuff, especially when you are experiencing things that can put you in fight or flight, in this survival mode where you don't have like your critical thinking available as much. It's like, as soon as you can think of it, like, be sure to tell people what is going on so that, first of all, you weren't experiencing things alone, but also to make sure that you have documentation of things. If you have a witness to behavior that happened, of like cross-checking, like checking in with someone after, that isn't just like a conversation, but even if it is like someone came in to like check on you, or like you even are like, did you see that happen? Like, that wasn't just me. Like, even if it was like following up the next day of like you sending like a text or like a chat or an email or something that's like, thank you for being for me when this situation happened. I really appreciate it. If you ever need something, I could be there for you. Of like, I feel like that is, you know, like a kind thing to do. It's respectful, but also it can act as a way to have it in writing too. So that's not to be like manipulative or like to cheapen the thanks that you're giving someone, but also to make sure you are covering your bases. If there are any sort of communications that have happened, if you have personally filed with HR because of things that are going on, keeping that documentation, sending it to your personal accounts, sending all of this to your personal accounts so it's not just saved on like your work accounts, so that it doesn't just disappear when you leave. That is very important. And like having a folder of like workplace abuses or something like that. This is like, whether you have a union rep or not, this is very important for documenting what is going on, and so that there is a chance for recourse. May I recommend a website for Culture Corner? Ooh, yeah. And a tortilla to help finish off the herbs at the bottom. Oh, that sounds so good. Okay, I'm looking this up. I'll keep playing this while I'm looking it
So
up.
glad I don't have to go to this meeting alone.
That's what your union is for. If at any point during this meeting you decide you need to take a break, just let me know, tap me on my shoulder, and we can step outside.
Ooh.
Are you ready?
I guess so.
Thank you both for coming in today. So, Becky, we're here meeting
Thank you
today
for
because
sharing,
your usual
Bunso.
shift is from 8:30 to 3:30, but I asked you to come in at 7:30 to cover Marta's shift, who's out on leave. So why were you late?
Well, I didn't see your email until after everything happened on Monday. And besides, I'm a single mom and I don't have...
This is excellent. Yeah, maybe I'll go over some of these resources even tomorrow. Garlic confit is wicked easy. I need to get the Discord up and running, but we did have like a recipes channel, because sometimes figuring out what to eat can be annoying. And people have such great ideas. Some foodies here, which I love. I found it through fascists, but it's a leftist thing. Yes, fascists take notes from leftists on war fighting. Yep. One thing I learned from them was, if you can't take notes from your enemy, you're bound to lose. Yeah, if we can apply the same tactics.
Care for my daughter before my shift starts. I told you that when I was interviewing, and you said it wouldn't be an issue.
It's not a complete meal if I'm not air frying. That sounds great. A confit is like a mush of something. That's like the least that's probably like the worst way of putting that. Of just like having like a mush of things together that you like put on top of another thing. I guess we can get an official definition. The foodies in the chat will probably have a more sophisticated way of saying that. It's French for to conserve. Here we go. Confit is any type of food that is cooked slowly over a long period as a method of preservation. Confit as like confiture, that means like jam in French, as a cooking term, describes the process of cooking food in fat, whether it be grease or oil, at a lower temperature compared to deep frying. A garlic spread. Oh, delicious.
Copy the email I have. You sent this on a Saturday?
Yeah, so why weren't you checking your email every day?
It was a weekend. I didn't know I was supposed to check my work email on a weekend.
I'd like to discuss that further since Becky is an hourly employee. The employer should not be sending in emails to employees and expecting them to be read on the weekend unless they are on call and it's paid for. There are currently no on-call provisions in her contract. Classified employees are hourly, whereas certificated employees are not, such as teachers.
I mean, we've sent emails over the weekend in the past, and it hasn't been a big deal. I mean, the fact still remains. Becky didn't show up for a shift on time.
So in this situation, they're talking about this underhand tactic of like, oh, we technically have, like, we fulfilled this policy of letting you know in a certain amount of time, but like, if they're trying to do a workaround of saying like, well, I contacted you during this time that you normally are not working, or like, especially contacting you after hours, this is something to be documenting that you are experiencing as a worker, unless there is like some sort of agreement with the nature of the job that you signed up for. Even saving the job listing. I know this is taking like a lot of, like, it's doing a lot of things without having the knowledge of things being in an abusive situation, but I think this should go for everyone, of like saving the things that you sign in a workplace, saving the job listing if you still have it available at all, or like after you sign on to a job your first day, of like just requesting it from your supervisor. That can be very helpful, so that if they are asking you to do things that are outside of the parameters for your job, and it is not, especially when they're asking you to do more work, that is something that should be documented. Like, you should be compensated for the work that you're doing, and if they are asking you to do things that fall outside of it, you should be compensated for that. That is a point for asking for a raise. That is a point for saying, like, no, I am not going to do this because this is not part of my job description. Pull up the literal job description. And this goes for any sort of policy that they are wanting to pin you with, of him being like, oh, well, this was this notification policy of letting you know you had to come into work and such, of like, if you are aware of what the meeting will be about, if you are called into a meeting like this, any sort of disciplinary thing you are guessing it's going to be, come with policies on hand. Make sure that you like have things highlighted or you've read it beforehand. And if you are not aware of what they're even going to be talking to you about, making sure you pull it up afterwards and documenting that. This is a way to protect yourself, of having the evidence of these policies, cross-referencing it with the behavior that happens, and documenting this behavior as much as possible, whether it is with your calendar, your schedule, like pictures of a planner that you have, like your calendar on your phone, like the emails that are associated with it. Having things in writing is best. Warrior is warrior, war is war. Don't matter what side you're on a raid involving an arson attack on a village. Is bound to happen. Yeah, it's good to be equipped with knowledge. It's like, this is another way that we are able to build resistance. Guacala confidae. Oh, that sounds so good. Been on an avocado and garlic wave that
Why
also
would you not
sounds
notify
amazing.
HR and get a sub? There is a process to utilize for absences.
I appreciate you wanting to help Becky out, but I'm going to need Becky to be answering the questions.
We have an
And I
ad
don't need you to
starting
question
in
me.
less than a minute, just as a
I
heads up.
understand that, and she's more than willing to answer your questions.
Okay, so you brought up the contract. Doesn't it say that if there's going to be a shift change, that there has to be a 2-week notification in advance, in writing? That didn't happen. And what about Saturday and Sunday being our days off?
I'm going to need to review the contract to confirm that.
Just so happens I have a copy of the contract right here. I've highlighted the relevant sections that describe an employer's obligation to notify employees of any shift changes or potential shift changes. Also, it notes in there that Saturdays and Sundays are days of rest.
Well, thank you for providing this copy of the contract to me. I'm going to need a few moments to review that and get back to you. Those are all my questions, so thank you for coming in today.
I know, the union rep really came through with the policies.
Well, how do you think that went?
I think it went well.
Me, like, waxing poetic about, maybe not so poetic, about how workers can protect themselves. Meanwhile, the union rep is like, I have all these answers. Which is why it's so helpful to actually have a union in a workplace. Protests and riots use similar principles to ambushes and raids, so I've discovered from my reading and from cross-referencing things professionals have said with that. That's okay. I mean, it's all information, like what you were saying. It's like, I think it's good, especially as we have been talking about, like, learning how to defend ourselves, whether that is intellectually with our rights and the resources that we have available, and also physically. This is really important.
I have a strong case that the employer was in violation of the contract. If they pursue any further discipline, we can grieve it, so let me know. But I don't think they'll pursue this any further.
I'm so glad. I really appreciate that you're here today.
That is what being a union steward is for. Also, I did notice that it looks like you're not a member in good standing for our chapter.
I know. I really can't afford the dues. I'm going back to school.
Okay, so even if you are technically not a member in good standing, as mentioned in this story or in this situation, you can still ask for a union rep to be present at one of these meetings. All covered collective bargaining unit employees should be provided representation regardless of their membership status. As union leaders, we should encourage non-members to stand with their co-workers and join us. We are stronger together. Yes. Yes.
I'm on a tight budget.
Believe me, I understand, but you can't really afford to not pay dues. Did you know on our last contract negotiation, we got a 9% raise for all the employees? The employer only wanted to give us 3%, and we got a 6% above that. That raise alone is more than enough to cover your cost of dues. Your dues are very minimal in comparison to the raise you just received.
Wow. I had no idea.
The meeting today is also a great example of why we need to have everyone join and strengthen our union and power in numbers. If more people choose to not join, we won't be able to represent our coworkers effectively. Plus, the benefits and wage increases far outweigh the cost of union dues. Believe me, I'm also on a tight budget. I just want to leave you with a sheet of our wins that we negotiated in our last contract, along with a QR code. We would love to have you join our family.
Well, thank you so much for your help and all of this information. I truly did not know all this stuff. You know what? How can I say no after hearing all that? I'm going to go ahead and sign up today.
Excellent.
Unfortunately,
Let's see if people willing. Yeah, especially like what you're talking about, Bunso, of people being willing to take on risk physically in resisting and coordinating with knowledge of tactics. Yeah, we say diversity of tactics for a reason. Of like the powers that be, the ruling class, want us to believe that there is a quote unquote like appropriate way for resisting because they want to be able to have controlled opposition.
Every situation will go as well as it did with Becky's.
In this next scenario, an
Yeah, that
HR
would be
director
great.
sent an
Thank you.
investigatory letter to an employee about being in arrears on sick leave, also known as deduct or unpaid leave.
The employee contacted their union shop steward to attend the investigatory meeting. Let's see how it goes.
Joe, I've noticed you've had quite a few absences over the last few months, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but you have a negative sick leave balance, and you're still calling in sick. Can you tell me what's going on with that?
No one ever told me that. I thought I still had sick leave on the books. And also, I'm recovering from knee surgery, and my boss knows that.
Regardless, you've called out 10 times in the last 2 months.
May we have a copy of that documentation?
I don't have any copies on hand. Joe, are you aware of our policy regarding absences?
I think I read it at some point, but that would have been when I was hired, so it was a while ago.
Well, it's a violation.
I know this is besides the point, but their acting is really good in this, I just have to say. And it looks like this is by, like, these are all union members, which very cool, and doing these situations that they're creating, so we aren't, like, that's not a necessity of, like, being able to portray what is happening in a particular situation, but that's fun to see. Just want to give them their props. Massively underrepresented in actuality, mind you.
Would have been when I was hired, so it was a while ago.
Well, it's a violation of our policy for you to take unpaid time when you don't have any sick leave left.
So can we have a copy of the policy and the documentation?
I can get it for you. All staff receive it, and we do an annual review.
My understanding is that these absences wouldn't count under FMLA.
Well, there's no record of FMLA or PFMLA in her file, and she's not on extended leave.
Okay. I don't believe that Joe was made aware by admin that she qualified for FMLA, so can I get a copy for her and I of the policy?
Both you and Joe received copies of the policy on hire. It's up to the employee to be proactive about their medical situation and inform the employer if they believe they're eligible for FMLA.
Okay, well, but I don't think anyone ever told me, like, how to go see how much sick leave I have left. And also, no one ever told me that I was out either.
Yeah, so if Joe wasn't aware if she didn't have any sick leave left, how's she even supposed to figure it out if nobody told her?
Well, I need to review the contract language to see if it's the employer's responsibility, but I believe it's up to the employee. And Joe, I really need you to answer the questions, and I need you to do less questioning of me.
I understand that, but I'm here so that she and I can conduct the meeting, and I will make sure that she gets everything that she needs.
I can give...
Not every union covers bases this well, and personally, this is a golden standard example. Yeah, I say so as well, of like, sometimes there may be people who are not as willing to push back against what is going on, and this is why, like, it's good to have a union in a workplace in general, but there can be unions that are sanctioned by the workplace that isn't independent from the workplace. And this means it's even harder to get pushback against what's happening. So this is another reason why it's so important for us all to be educated and to make sure that we are equipped with knowledge as workers individually, because like it's better to have a union rep with you than not, so that you aren't alone in this situation, that you actually have a witness to what is going on, but also to be able to be your own advocate if you feel like it is the union rep and their advocacy is not doing or going as far as what you need. And sometimes that may happen if a rep is pulling back in order to protect the union more and the collective. And this is where it is okay, in my mind, as a worker, to be more pushy and advocate for yourself, because this doesn't mean, because this is how you prevent people from walking all over you. And so, like, it doesn't mean that if you are pushing back, especially in a substantial way, and oftentimes if you are being, if you're having this type of disciplinary meeting to begin with, it can be very targeted, it can be very bigoted and discriminatory a lot of the time. And so, like, this isn't to say that it doesn't come without risk, that if you are standing up for yourself in any sort of workplace, there is risk associated with that. And that is also the intention of these oppressive forces, to make it so that we are not standing up for our own humanities, not standing up for our rights, not standing up for our dignity. And if you feel like there is representation that is not going far enough, that you should be able to protect yourself. You as an American have access to things such as... Interesting. I know, I need to be more educated on defense. Low-key, can I get a person who speaks up for me in this way? Like, everything? Pretty please. I know. Like, please, can we have someone who is willing to be an advocate? Yeah. So, like, the level, like, of representation and pushback, that can vary, especially depending on the person and, like, the kind of union that is established. But another reason why it's so important for us to have the tools available for us to stand up for ourselves too. Just a sweetie sitting next to me saying, "Be nicer." I know. I know, especially in this situation where they're like, "You need to stop asking me as many questions." That's like, that is boss bullshit, you know? And that should be called out. Okay, so I think I will stop here for today. But, meow, cute. Friends in the chat. But this union, they have a number of resources that are really great. New employee orientations, one-on-one conversations. So, like talking about unionizing, helping new employees as a union rep. There are some really great sources of information that they have. Alice, oh, Alice and Bella. Hello to Alice and Bella. Okay, we'll continue talking about Weingarten rights tomorrow. I also have an article that is by the National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, to read about Weingarten rights. just to make sure we have all of that information. Want to cover our bases there. But I did want to ask you all, I guess I could do a poll. I've never done a poll before. I mean, at least in this way. I have in other ways. Manage poll. Create new poll. Question. Maybe I'll... This seems complicated. Maybe I'll just ask you all what you think. This one is being a loaf. Oh, exploring and sneezing. That's so cute. So I did want to ask you all what we should read in the meantime, because we do have recommendations for Agnes Grey, the book that's written by Anne Bronte, another Bronte sister, and also Life of Worker Bees that I want to read as well. But while I am acquiring these books, I was going to provide a few examples of just books that I have available. So we just finished Othello, and if you did miss any of Othello, you can access the YouTube. I'll put that in the chat. YouTube. But since we were reading Shakespeare and maybe a little more attuned to like what that language is like, I was like, Macbeth is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. If that is an option, we read Macbeth. Also with the Odyssey coming out, if we read the Odyssey. Also Moby Dick. I guess I could be putting this in a poll. Let's see. What should we read next? You created it? Ah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, if we want to do next book. Thank you, Tan. Worker Bees, Macbeth, Odyssey, Moby Dick. Yeah, especially between Macbeth, the Odyssey, and Moby Dick as of right now. Because I need to acquire the books for the top two. Thank you very much, Tan. You're the best. Cheating allowed? What does that mean? What does that mean? Stuffing the ballot boxes. Oh, this is what they were talking about. Oh no! You can give channel points to vote more. Oh, incentives. 99 fake points. Okay. So it looks like Macbeth is winning. All right. We're split evenly between Macbeth and Moby Dick. Uh-oh. Let's create a new one. What should we read? Moby Dick. Yeah, I'm like thinking of another Shakespeare play that we could be reading. Allow additional votes. Oh, yeah. No channel points. Okay, I think I did it so there isn't channel points. Runoff election. I know it still might be a tie. It's going for a minute. Cast lots. True, we can if we need. Moby Dick is pretty long. I've never read Moby Dick, actually. I've only read excerpts of it. Pull straws. Yeah. If we don't have one decided on, lower than 10 gets a Moby Dick. I may just make an executive decision. Okay, evenly split. Higher than 10 gets us Macbeth. Okay. Dice roll of 20. I don't know if I even have dice. I don't think I do. Shake them dice and roll them. Well, I guess we have like doing like an automated one. Actually, I think I may just decide. Is that cool with the audience? Cool with you? Okay. Since we were able to get down to 2, maybe let's read Macbeth. Because I think it would be fun to read something that I've read before. I'm a little more familiar with Macbeth than I am with Othello, so I think I may be able to pull in more context. So we'll read Macbeth tomorrow, start on Macbeth, at least the intro, while I acquire some of these other books. Okay. And I guess we can do a raid. Bounce House, you always have people that you know that are on. If you have any recommendations. Dessoff Macbeth copy. Excuse me. We'll be reading this next. Shovda, if you want. Ooh, I don't know who this is. That's cool. Yay. Searching for them. I don't know why when I try to use the like channel shorthand, it doesn't really work. Speedrunner. Ooh, okay. All right. Thank you all for being here. It was lovely having you. Thank you all for your support. Blessings to you. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, wherever you are. And we will be rating in 5, 4, 3. Okay, go behave yourselves.